acceptance or move to approve the minutes? Mike.
I move to approve the minutes.
Mike moves to approve. Anyone want a second? Jane seconds. All in favor of approving the minutes from April 15th? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. So we've got a few folks not online. Great. Katie says she can't hear.
I can hear now.
Oh.
I just had to, like I said,
Great.
having some technology.
Yeah.
James said.
Great. You can hear us now. Great. Well, welcome. And I was saying that we're going to go through our agenda, and when we get to the time to go through your applications, we will open it up. And if you have any comments or, want to make a note beforehand, feel free to raise your hand or unmute, and we will invite you in. So thanks for your interest and participating virtually. Trustee update. Chris with the trustee sign.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going? Well, let's see. I'm sure you're gonna have a whole breakdown of the Dandelion Day. That was phenomenal, I thought, and I had a fun time. Let's see what else. And I think there's also going to be an agenda item on geothermal stuff as well. The main big news, obviously, is we have new trustees, 3 great new trustees, and I think they're excited for their jobs. And we went through a bunch of training and had 1 meeting so far, so they're settling in. And so those are, that's Ross Cribbs and Christina Montemayor and Jess Robinson. And I guess I'll give you the rundown now on what the different liaisons are to different committees in case you want to know who's connected about what. So I'm on this and the Bike Ped Trails Commission. Erica Sparhawk is on Parks and Recreation Commission, and Colorado Communities for Climate Action, and Victims Assistance Law Enforcement Board, which is really a board that rarely meets. Ben is the alternate on RAFTA and is also on a CDOT Transportation Planning Region Board. Colin is on our West Mountain Regional Housing Coalition Board, which has been sort of stood up in the last year. And RAFTA, and RAFTA, he's the main, I guess one of the 2 on RAFTA. And then Jess Robinson will take over Carbondale Chamber of Commerce and Garfield Clean Energy boards. And Ross Cribbs will take over Carbondale Public Arts Commission, Rudai Water and Power Association, and the Crystal River Wild and Scenic Coalition. Oh, and the Tree Board. Yeah, a lot of X's. I'm sort of going cross-eyed here. And then let's see, Christina Montemayor is going to be an alternate on the Chamber of Commerce, and her, and then also on the Victims Law Enforcement Board and the 3rd Street Center Board. And she will also, her main biggest lift will be trying to stand up this Latino Advisory Board, which has kind of been sitting around in stasis for a while. So hopefully that'll happen. And I think that's
Chris,
pretty much it.
I'm glad we got to keep you.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to be here. But yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to them if there's something specific you want to, buttonhole somebody about or whatever on a specific issue. Good to keep in mind. Those trustees with those specific committees can often have a lot of information. So Um,
And Chris, can I just ask a question on that? Is there a time, I know last meeting we talked about with the new trustees coming on, that it would be nice to have a time that the e-board could connect with the
mhm,
trustees, just to give an update. I mean, and maybe that wants to be connected to the budget,
mhm.
but what do you think on that? It seems like we're
I
kind of
think-
getting into the time that that
yeah.
would be later summer, so maybe it's bundled with the budget discussion, but it would be nice to just share out what the e-board's working on and
Yeah,
connect with those folks.
I think I would talk to the mayor maybe about that and see what he thinks. He would, at least the last meeting, that first meeting with all of us, he sort of floated the idea, and I'm not sure if that's gone anywhere, of having a longer, more retreat style work session meeting that's kind of addressing new trustees' priorities and looking at what we did a pretty good rundown at the last meeting of like all the projects that are going on, from town center to the downtowner to the finishing up the Crystal River Park to any number of different things, planning department stuff. So I think hopefully if we had that meeting, it would be nice if we had some different committees too, maybe could be part of that. But yeah, I guess, yeah, I would assume we should have when do we normally do that, right? Just at the beginning of budget season, kind of?
The last few years, we've done that at the end of the summer. I
Mhm.
think it's been August or September, which generally works.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just kind of we can kind of keep in touch about that as we move into that. It's helpful to know a few months ahead, because then as a board, we can talk about, putting our plan together and our kind of budget priorities and be on the same page about that before we connect with the trustees.
Yeah, that sounds great.
But I can connect with you and with Ben if need be, and then
Mhm.
try to get a targeted date.
All right. Yeah, that we can get together.
Perfect.
Let's see, what else do we have to mention? The swimming pool project is sort of going into launch mode, I would say, I think construction's supposed to get going here pretty soon. So we'll see that take shape. There's some minor modifications in the sort of approval, zoning approval procedure that happened at the last meeting. We're also gonna talk tomorrow about, with the P and Z, we'll have our kind of joint session with them. So I think there's some discussion of ADUs and inclusionary zoning in that discussion. So if people have interest in that. But and also, I don't know if there are environmental related things for P and Z to think about, or anything, but also yeah, there's a lot of little minor things. Just, Chacos Park is also gonna come before the board for sort of its first look at that, so we'll see what that looks like and should be on the agenda for that if you want to look at the drawings or anything for that. Bonedale Bike Week was this last week. Hope people did something with that. That was fun. And I think that's about all I need to cover, I think. If anybody has any questions about anything.
Thanks, Chris.
I just had a question about the pool. I remember Pat was rallying to get some like energy efficiency measures incorporated into that project. As far as you're aware, is that still?
Well, it's still gonna be one of the few all-electric pools in the state. And we have cut back, we cut them back from any ambition of it being a year-round pool. So it's pretty much a summer season heating load instead of a more extended season heating load on that. Probably the biggest concession environmentally has been that the lap pool went to 6 lanes and has a diving board in it. So it's a bigger pool. And that was determined that you could host swim meets there and have a lot more versatility in terms of having a diving board and laps at the same time, and just generally making that pool more useful and versatile going forward. And then also just, they decided the deeper part of the pool was somehow more efficient to be done in the lap pool, I guess, because it's a colder pool to begin with, and simpler. With the recreational pool, any depth of the pool has to be achieved at a very gradual grade, apparently, for ADA reasons. So it required a much bigger pool apparently to get down to the depth of a diving board or something like that. So I think the pools themselves will be pretty nice, and a pretty good amenity for town. You know, I think the biggest questions are all just about like the site, and it's going to be tighter on the park there and encroach more onto the street and stuff. And so that'll take some getting used to, and it's going to, along with the Forest Service, it's going to be a kind of a rough getting used to period, I think, about that, around that stuff. But yeah, the cat's out of the bag on both of those projects. So it's kind of
But yeah, from an energy standpoint, I mean, a lot of that was being pushed for from an all electric and use of heat pumps, and, you know, all of
Yeah.
that was really quite successfully integrated into the design. So
yeah, and it's definitely a huge
there was a big effort of
investment.
team to do
because-
that, and an
yeah.
investment, but
Yeah, because it particularly because it requires a bigger building, so to hold all the equipment, that's more equipment or more volume of equipment. So that was one part of the thing. I think one of the big things we'll have to keep fighting for is, you know, there's an ad alternate, I think, right now still for this trellis work, which expands the solar capacity tremendously of the project. So and it's yeah, and the hot tub is still in the project as well. And so those sort of two things might be competing for funds at the end of the project, but hopefully we can do them all.
just a clarification on that, my understanding was that the hot tub was a phase 2, whereas the trellis was an ad alternate. Is that, do you know if that's the
I
case?
think that, no, as far as I understand it, the hot tub it's being, at this point, it's considered in the phase 1 or whatever.
Got it.
And they will for sure be putting in conduit and stuff and space, and having space in the building for equipment for that
For the hot tub.
for that use.
Yeah.
But maybe the final finish work might not happen, but that would probably sound likely at this point. So
Thanks.
I don't know if you have.
Chris, the Forest Service is going to take up room of Cypress Park. The new pool is going to take up room
Mhm.
in Cypress Park. Are we going to have enough room for Mountain Fair?
No.
Dandelion Day was pretty crowded.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, in hindsight, it's regrettable that, you know, we couldn't do it somewhere else, I feel like, but we got to the point we are now.
Right, but just to be clear, they're not expanding past their current sites.
No, they are. There's basically the area that was the oasis will be within the
A
pool.
part of the pool. Got it.
Basically, it's gonna go right up against that rock, the miners' memorial rock there, that sort of is on the edge of the, so there will be impacts for sure to the park. And yeah, that is what it is. And it's kind of the trade-off of, yeah, of fitting that programming in there, basically.
So where the e-board tent was for Dandelion Day will now be in the deep end of the pool.
E-board tent, were you guys all the way down there past the screen pinching? I didn't make it that far.
Right, yeah, for more conversation.
I thought that the Dandelion Day was awesome, I have to say. But
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else have other questions, comments for Chris?
And Bike Week was awesome too. It was the most successful I've seen it in 5 years, I think, so.
Great. Hello, how's it going?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Scott, I jumped because I knew you were kind of getting situated, but are you okay to?
Go for it.
Okay, I was gonna. Sorry, I just want to acknowledge that I knew that you came in, Scott, but I was gonna just move to Lauren because she was,
Apologies for being late.
is your car okay?
Picked up the car from the shop, got 10 minutes down the road and the check engine light came on, turned right around and said, can you help me?
Oh,
So,
gosh.
yeah.
But you're here. Somehow things,
They got some
Turned
stuff
around?
figured out, yeah. I'm here.
oh man,
Just not prepared.
well,
It's okay.
yeah.
I'm here to learn.
Lauren, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. Lauren Servier with CLEER. I always forget that.
We have folks online.
Hello.
So if you don't mind just introducing yourself again for the folks that are
Absolutely.
online and not usually in these meetings. or
Sure.
Joining today.
Lauren Servier with CLEER. Okay. So great job on Dandelion Day. Thank you, everybody, for participating and putting on such a great event. Our team just wanted to say thank you. We were really happy to sponsor it, and just the feedback on the event was really wonderful. So I wanted to start with that. I know that was a lot of volunteer time, so I think the community is really appreciative. All right, so first thing on the agenda we had was a recap of the geothermal event. I actually would say I'm happy to answer questions. We did a workshop followed by a community open house to discuss the Carbondale Geothermal Coalition project. And I am happy to entertain questions, but I also don't want to waste anyone's time about that. We had just a really quick update on that. We had over 100 people attend. Thank you to those of you who were able to make it. We brought in actually people from Fraser, Meeker, Steamboat, Montrose, Telluride. So it was a good turnout. There's a lot of people around the West Slope who are really trying to figure out how to tap into that resource effectively and maybe eventually drive down costs and kind of get into the weeds on the complication of district heating and cooling using geothermal. So, I think probably one of the most exciting things is that we did finally get a little bit of presence from Excel Energy, which is a rare occasion up here. So they did send someone up from Denver, got some good FaceTime with them, and they are going to be piloting some projects around the state. We are loosely courting them to Project Carbondale, but because we're not in Excel gas territory, it makes it a little bit more challenging. There's a possibility they might add us on as a pilot project at the end of the year. So long process there, but it was just really a good, I think, networking event. We're at the very early stages of figuring out how potentially could municipal water utilities or electric or gas utilities, project developers, third-party financiers get into the business of small network geothermal systems. So that was the focus of that. And then the workshop, we really just put posters up and talked about the site design for the Carbondale feasibility study, which includes 3rd Street Center down to Bridges and the library in 2 phases, starting with 3rd Street Center and moving out towards Bridges. And had a surprisingly good turnout for that as well. I didn't ask for registration from people, so it was just, come on, bring your kids, come yourself, and had some really great questions from the community. And I think our head count on that was 52 people throughout the course of 2 hours. So both were really successful. I'd love to answer questions if anyone showed up and has any feedback from that. Anyone?
I would just say I went and it was great. I thought it was a
Thank you.
really wonderful balance between like more deeper kind of technical information and more of the policy side and the finance side. I mean, it's the effort that is happening there is less about doing innovative technology, but more about the innovative partnerships and kind of connecting organizationally the folks to make that happen, which I thought was just really important to have those people in the room. And yeah, I mean, I learned a lot and I like know about geothermal stuff, but it was really, I thought it really did a nice job of just kind of getting into the details and bringing folks together, and having the folks from NREL was awesome. So just thanks for doing a great event. I thought it was really nice.
Hi.
There's Morgan. Mike, I know that you went. Did you have any?
Thank you, Hannah.
Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know.
Getting some
Is
static.
that me?
Morgan, are you able to mute maybe? There we go. We were just getting a lot of feedback. Thanks. But welcome.
Hi. All right. Yep. Thank you. Thank you for attending it. NREL was, yep, on the extreme of looking at how can we use build advanced building modeling tools to measure different loads and really look at a heating need and a cooling need, combining those needs, leveling them out, making a more efficient system. But you're hitting the nail on the head. It's a policy question at this point. And that was a 2-hour workshop. We could have stayed 3. I'd love to find the funding to really do them ongoing, quarterly. So we're at this point, I would say, on the policy side of things, on the business, tax, infrastructure, financing, waiting for a little bit of state direction, not wanting to reinvent the wheel and expend our limited resources without tapping into what's going on with the pipe fitters union and tax credits at the state level, potential regulation with Excel. So it's an exciting project to be involved in. And I would say we're in the very young stages of it. Just think about, solar decades ago, it might be a similar situation. So leading edge.
This might be a wonky question, but I was just curious. I know you have the federal grant for that project, but are you going after any of the state geothermal funding as well for that? Or trying to stack different grants?
So we did apply for 2 energy office grants, bless you. And one of them was for local match for the DOE grant. So we have to provide a 10% local match for infrastructure for that grant. And then we also submitted a separate grant application to provide legal support, drafting interconnection agreements, insurance issues. I mean, getting to the end game on actually signing a customer up, providing an O&M structure, all of these things was not entirely funded by DOE. So we also want to create a case study out of, if we're able to secure that grant funding, to look at this project as one piece of a toolkit. Here's how you can evaluate project development and produce something that potentially a developer could also use, or another small town could use to say, okay, this is going to help me evaluate a project, work through some things a little bit more quickly, have a resource list, those kinds of things. And we were supposed to hear on April 1st, and the latest word is May 31st. We might hear about those 2 things. So thanks for asking. And the tax credits from the state are for heat pumps, actually, all types of heat pumps. Geothermal, their tax credit specifically is for power generation, so different ballgame. Yep. Okay, next on the agenda is Ride and Drive. Quinn Donnelly knows more about it than I do because he has been intimately involved in planning, and we are very appreciative of that. That's on first Friday, June 7th. And the town has graciously allowed us to use this parking lot back there because this needs to be reserved for First Friday parking. Quinn, maybe you would have some more
Sure.
details for the group and tell us about it.
Yeah, so Mary Harland and Martine at CLEER have been doing almost all the planning work. I've just been kind of giving advice. And so as Lauren said, it's going to be in this parking lot back here on First Friday. It's June 7th this year. And there's a lunch and learn at the 3rd Street Center from noon to 1, talking about EV stuff. And then this event is from 4 to 6 or 4 to 7. I can't remember. Oh yeah, 4 to 7.
4 to 7.
And so there's going to be a bunch of car vendors that are bringing cars: Subaru, Rivian, Chevy, Honda, and then they're still talking to VW, Ford, and Tesla. And there's some private EV owners that are bringing cars. And so basically they're gonna, you'll be able to drive them. You'll go out this lot, go down by the dog park, by HH's house, and then turn around and come back. And then outside of the cars, there's gonna be some folks that put in chargers in homes. eBoard's gonna have a booth, age-friendly. Carbondale might have a booth, CLEER, Excel, Holy Cross, probably the Rotary Environmental Group. And then we've been talking to a couple of the, like Ace Hardware, and I went and talked to the co-op today about having a booth to talk about their electric lawn care equipment. So it's gonna be should be a cool event. And eBoard folks, if you're interested in volunteering, maybe manning the booth for a couple hours, and we probably need some people out on Main Street to kind of direct folks down this way that are out there for First Friday. So I'll send out an email as we get closer about it from our side of things. And I think that might be.
Quinn,
Yeah.
is it your take that a couple hours is a long time on a first Friday? Could we do short
Sure.
volunteer shifts? I mean,
Yeah, I'll send
Sure.
out an hour shifts for one person to sign up and man the booth. If folks are interested.
Yep.
Cause that's a good idea, Lauren. Part of it is, we had dedicated $1,000 from the eBoard's budget to basically sponsor this event. And we needed to get confirmation today, and so we can get the check over to CLEER. So I don't know how that works. We just kind of, and so I asked Mary what is gonna be spent on. It's gonna help pay for food at the Lunch and Learn at noon, and then they're gonna spend it on media materials for advertising the event primarily, newspaper, social media, radio, and then a couple other minor things, but primarily we sent on advertisement for the event, and then some stuff to make it more enjoyable to folks that are coming to participate. So how do we? I
Great.
haven't voted on anything in a long time.
Yeah, so in the same way that we just passed a motion. So I'll make a motion that we approve the $1,000 that we allocated at the beginning of the year for EV to go to support the Ride and Drive event on June 7th.
I'll second.
Quinn seconds. Discussion or vote? Shall we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thanks, Morgan. Online. Great.
Yeah, so it should be a cool event. Oh, WeCycle is probably gonna be there, and they've been talking to some, Basalt Bike and Ski has electric bicycles. They're gonna come and allow people to ride e-bikes up and down the Rio Grande Trail with helmets and whatnot. So, yeah, Mary and Martina, they've been killing it. They got all sorts of, they had to get insurance for the event and all sorts of things, so. Yeah, it should be a cool event.
It's a true event when you have insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
okay.
Thanks, Quinn, for your work on that.
Yeah.
That's,
Thank you.
that's great.
What I keep hearing is that EV sales are strong. What isn't strong are EV charging stations. Is this going to be increasing the charging stations around town? Is that going to be part of the program on the 7th?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think, that from my understanding, the town is looking at that. I think what they found is most people here that own EVs are, most of the chargers aren't used that heavily, so they haven't seen a huge need for more, but I know they're looking at that, but it won't be part of this event. But maybe we could have like a comment form or something, people could fill out comments and you could help kind of push it that way. I don't know, maybe I'm speaking out of turn here, but.
Yeah, I mean, the way that we'd kind of thought about this last year with the EV was to do this event. That was one piece of our EV. And then also starting to think about the charging infrastructure and digging into more of like, just getting more arms around what that looks like. Is that more public charging stations? How could the eBoard support charging infrastructure and what would that look like? The Carbondale or the EV, what is it? EV,
Go EV City.
well, Go EV City, yes, but the GCE that you reviewed, Quinn, that was
EV readiness plan?
the EV readiness plan, right? Had some kind of aspects to that we wanted to, as that has been completed, kind of take a look and see what aspects from that plan and also the Go EV City resolution that we worked on, kind of what the next steps were for charging infrastructure. So definitely on the radar of how to support that effort. But I feel like we need to kind of dig in to know a little bit more about what the best ways are to support that and to support town. Chris, what were you gonna?
I'm just spitballing right now, but I do think, my opinion is that probably the stickiest wicket, we have a couple of chargers that are near the Cowan Center that tourists can find and use, and that's an important thing to be on the map at least, of like, oh, I can stop there if I'm coming through town. That's, I think, the first thing but then obviously most people who own EVs, I think probably have single family homes and have put in a charger at their house. So the rental unit and apartment buildings is kind of where your gap is, and for the most part. And how do you deal with, putting in that infrastructure, sponsoring it? There's not really any necessarily a incentive for the property owner, if it's a management company or something like that, to invest in that such a thing. And then, how does it get shared between residents potentially too? So I don't know if there's any information, or probably there's thoughts about that coming out, but that's probably the hardest. That's the place where I feel like the EV thing is probably has its biggest gap of being able to be adopted, is like for like more people who don't have a single family house, basically. So
Maybe it's worth mentioning here that I believe Mary is involved in this cohort of like sustainability staff from our communities around here, looking at specifically at multifamily charging.
cool.
So we'll just keep an eye on that. But I think that is going to be studied, and they're trying to get participation in some workshops from property managers and whatnot.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, my take on it is I feel like it'd be really worthwhile for eBoard and some folks if we wanted to kind of get together and as a subcommittee group or as a smaller subset, kind of think about just doing some more exploration around that space and what ways, just to kind of determine how the eBoard can be involved with what's happening currently or where are their gaps. Just my sense is that it would be helpful to do a little bit of investigation to determine where the best way is to literally plug in. So that's my thought. And if anybody, I mean, I'm interested to think about that. And, after this event too, we may have some other feedback of just discussions that happen on the 7th, but.
It seems like along those lines, having a small meeting for anyone who's interested on the key takeaways from the EV readiness plan, also doing the homework, getting ready to look at the state legislation. So my understanding is there is some state legislation that is going to require new multifamilies to provide
Yeah,
that.
correct.
So really targeting, okay, what are the tools for that? And then looking at ultimately who's paying the bills and how are they paying those charging bills if it's town owned, for example. Maybe bringing Holy Cross into the conversation as well. Looking at some creative options there, and maybe planning ahead, as part of our existing budget cycle for next year to really have the capacity to dig in on that at a planning level. So perhaps end of summer might be a good time.
Yeah, would you be interested, Lauren, to be a part of that conversation?
I
Just from a initial early,
I would be. I think certainly I'm not on our mobility team, so Mary and Martine would be the best fit, but CLEER would be interested in helping to facilitate it if we need to bring the players to the table, organizing the meeting, and you all can each pick kind of which topic area you're most interested in and figure out how expansive of a subcommittee it needs to be. That might be the best fit for us. Just helping to get it going so that you guys can keep your day jobs. Okay. See, that I'll let y'all move on with your agenda. I think the only other thing that that I would have to report is that the state is also late in reporting on the electrification grant for town hall. We're hoping to hear, I believe, Friday about that. So Lauren Gister, Heidi, and then August Haas from REG have been working on kind of allocating, getting under contract, doing a portion of the work before we're able to get some money from the state and just kind of moving the funds around. But we're really hoping to know by Friday about that grant opportunity, which again would support electrification of this building. So I will definitely be reporting at the next e-board meeting as to the outcome of that grant. And if we do not get it, what the plan B is for going after finishing that project.
Sounds good.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Lauren. Lauren, one thing I would just flag for you is that we're gonna talk later if we have enough folks to be a part of the June meeting.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll send you an email if we're not meeting in June,
Okay.
but just know that there's a possibility that we might skip June, but we're gonna talk about that later and you don't need to stick around for that. I'll just
Okay.
send you a note.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
There's a good chance I wouldn't be here in June either. I could be here remotely though, probably. So.
Great. Scott, shall we circle back to you?
Gladly.
Feeling
Everybody doing?
calibrated?
I'm not prepared, but I'm here. So
We'd
it's
love to
okay.
know what's your update, what's happening
It's
in
gonna be
your
great.
world, water meters.
Yeah, so that's what I was just looking at last month. What did we discuss? So I can give a little update on the water meters. I think that's probably the most interesting thing that's happening because it really sets a path forward for us to be able to manage our water more effectively. Not only just in the coming couple of years, but really for the long term. So we have started installing our pilot meters. So we're starting off with 3 different vendors. We currently have 24 meters, individual meters in stock that we're starting to install. And then we're waiting for our 3rd vendor to send us a shipment of 16. But it's exciting to be able to start getting these technologically advanced meters that require no driving around to go get meter reads every month. And so we're gonna save a ton of gasoline and other, just time on the road, it's all gonna be fantastic. And then these meters are just so much more sensitive at low flow. So we have something massive like 40% unaccounted for water. So which is absurd. So we are working on, this is going to help us really tighten that up and figure out all the water that we're making and producing, like where is it going? So yeah, pretty exciting.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's happening. Other things that, let's see, what else should I follow up on here?
Can I just ask a question on that, Scott? Are
Sure.
you installing those like all around town and it all multifamily single, like?
Great question.
Where are those being installed?
Yeah, so our critical area is actually, we have a little over 50 water services south of Prince Creek Road. So going all the way up to Nettle Creek. Those are tapped straight into our main line from Nettle Creek. And those are the areas that are hardest to serve with this cellular-based technology. So that we're testing as many of them as we can up there. And then we have kind of sprinkled throughout town, different areas that we've selected like meter pits where we know that there's going to be problems getting these to read and things like that. So we're trying to test our worst case scenarios. Yeah.
And so will you go with one brand at the end of the day, or can you use multiple brands?
Yeah, exactly. So we're testing 3 best scenario or best options, and then we'll pick one, and then we'll place an order for about 100, I think is what I'm shooting for this year, and then plan a better budget for next year to figure out how to continue to implement one brand.
Are is there interoperability at all between them, or is each one its own whole siloed universe of software and hardware?
You got it exactly.
Okay.
Each one has like proprietary software.
So once we commit to one, we're really committed to this company for the long haul.
This is why we're pilot testing.
Okay. These companies have like a track record of staying in business.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. These are all big brands.
okay.
Great questions though. Yeah. Just that's exactly why, as a matter of fact, I've had a couple of our sales reps come in and they're like, we've never had anybody pilot test that as extravagantly as you are. I'm like, we're not making a huge purchase here just based off of how well you sell meters. So
That's good.
we're
Yeah.
testing things, being rigorous. So that's a great, I don't know, it's exciting for me because this is what's going to help us figure out and give us the data we need to make better decisions going forward. So, ditches were on last month when I mentioned it. This month we're still operating ditches. They've been very variable. I think the river's been kind of coming up and down a little bit as we've had some cooler temperatures. And so far things are looking really great out at just past the Weaver Head Gate in the Crystal River restoration area. And now that the river is coming up, so I think that all looks really good. And let's see, what else should I touch on? I think, I don't know if I have anything else that I need to touch on.
I have one other question.
Sure.
So I feel like we had some work going on over at the treatment plant that we were installing. We had to do some sort of gas installation over there in order to, did that project come to a completion? Is that whole thing pretty much dealt with, or is there still stuff going on over at the treatment plant?
Yeah, so you're probably thinking of the wastewater treatment plant and the
Or wastewater treatment plant?
yeah, the HVAC system that was installed. Yeah, so that was installed last year, and we are in process of preparing the building structural repairs. That was the whole reason. So we had to dry out the building so we could do the structural repairs.
Yeah, I thought it was sort of just the first step of
Yeah,
something.
so it's the first step. And then our next step is we're going to install some new pumps so we can actually safely pump down certain tanks so we can get in there and do the structural repairs. So that is scheduled for June.
Okay,
And then the big building work will happen in like July, August start timeframe.
Okay.
To try to be finished before winter
oh wow.
Yeah.
For this year?
this year.
Oh, cool. So this
Yeah.
it's ongoing.
Yes.
Cool.
We've got a lot of things up in the air at the moment. Oh, I should touch on the Nettle Creek Hydro project is still just waiting for parts to be delivered. So we're still struggling with that. We're at somewhere around 85% complete and just waiting on parts to go finish it up. So someday we're going to generate renewable energy. Yeah, other small projects just to touch on briefly would be the Roaring Fork treatment plant just over here. We're in the process of removing some kind of wasteful older filter technology to some new filtration technology that we've actually had installed since 2021 as an alternative treatment method. And now we've been using it and getting used to running it with this more up-to-date filtration technology. And so now we're in the process, we've submitted for permits, and then we'll be removing this old technology that's pretty wasteful. Every like 20-30 minutes, it has to go through a backwash cycle. So it wastes a bunch of water. You have to pump a lot more. There's a whole bunch of air compressors and stuff involved. So we're going to be removing all that, and we'll have just a direct cartridge filter. It'd be nice and simple and clean. So that will save, I haven't done any calculations on it, but it should save significant energy. It'll save significant chlorination process and stuff like that.
Wow. How much of that, there's only those little solar panels, those probably don't cover, do those cover the treatment plant there, or?
No, but they offset a fair amount. I haven't dug into that.
Mhm.
That's actually a good question. It probably should.
And do you know, the wastewater treatment plant is the biggest user probably in the whole town of electricity, maybe, right?
Of electricity, yes, because of our blowers.
Mhm.
That would be.
Yeah.
um,
It'd be fun to look at ways to offset that with solar in the long run too.
Yeah, I have kind of some, they're nascent thoughts. I haven't really put it all together, but at some point, after we get a proper 20-year plan put together,
Mhm.
we also have some big regulations coming. You missed a great presentation. That's another thing I should tell you about. We did a great presentation for the new Board of Trustees.
Oh, yeah.
And they got to see some of the big things that are coming. There's some, EPA is going to be rolling out new nitrogen phosphorus removal regulations.
Mhm.
Depending on how those come down, will necessitate very large capital upgrades to that plant. And at that point, we have an opportunity to really work on
Mhm.
kind of a path to, like, net zero or something like that.
Yeah, because I've been sort of thinking about, I was looking over at the just sitting in traffic on the Gateway Bridge and looking at the RV park and noticing sort of a giant weed encrusted hillside that just goes below the highway there between the park and the highway. And I think it's our property and faces dead south and has no trees or anything. And there looks like there's power lines all over the place. So I thought maybe we could plug it into our circuit or something.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah,
keep that-
I have thought about some of these things, so, would love to sit down and we can come up with we can cook up some great ideas. We have a lot of opportunity in all of our pieces of infrastructure, which there's quite a bit, so. But yeah, we're putting together some plans about that. I don't know, it's probably more than everybody wanted to hear. I try not to bore you with all the projects. We've got a lot of projects
Cool.
going, but a lot of them don't really pertain to the e-board.
We're interested to know what's happening in town. I would be really curious about the presentation that you gave to the new trustees overview, and maybe we, at the next D-board meeting or something, you could just give us an update, because like what, sharing about the Nettle Creek, that was very cool to know what's happening, and it's helpful for us to just be aware of, what's out there and what's going on, so.
Yeah, and I can try to keep you in the loop as well. I'd love to be able to show more people some of our more interesting facilities, especially, like right here, the Roaring Fork Treatment Plant. A lot of people go down to the nature
Field
park.
trip, Scott?
Yeah.
Let's do a field trip.
It would be great to be able to show you like that, or Nettle Creek, and especially once we get the hydro project running. I think there's some real opportunities for everybody to see, as I presented to the new trustees. We basically have an industrial process with, blue collar workers that are very skilled in what they do. And there's nobody else in the valley doing those kind of things except other water treatment plants. There's no big industrial, manufacturing facilities in this valley, So we do stuff that's pretty interesting and unique for the valley,
You mean other towns don't have the same treatment plants?
Yeah, like other towns do, but like
Across other industries.
there's no
or
other
across
industries.
other-
Yeah, there's nobody else is running, multi-millions of gallons of any product through, huge pipes. And it's big, expensive infrastructure. Like depending on how the EPA regulations come down for the wastewater treatment plant, we could be looking at a $20 to $40 million plant upgrade.
Wow.
These are huge projects, and I don't know, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I get too excited about it.
I would love to go. I'm really interested. Or would other people be interested sometime to go and see? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think over
Let's
this
make
next
that
year
happen
or so,
sometime in the next-
we can cook
Yeah.
up some different ideas. So.
Be great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. Anybody else have any other questions for Scott? Cool. Excellent. Well, let's move to, jumped around a little bit there, but we went through CLEER. Subcommittee reports. From the Be Friendly side, I can share that we On the turf replacement, so we have $16,000 worth of funding, which is funded at $2 a square foot. And currently we have intent to award $4,000 of that, which is great, but we've got still a fair amount more of grant funding that can be awarded to individuals who irrigate on town water and are not on a ditch. So that funding is still available. There's been a lot of interest in that, but so far we've got just the 2,000 square feet right now of irrigation. So irrigated turf that's coming out. So spread the word, talk to other folks. We've thought about, it would be interesting too to get some feedback. We've thought about what are ways to, how else is it good to get the word out? And also recognizing that we don't want to, spend significant amount of money to put ads in the Soper Sun like week on week, because then that eats up our funding source. That can go a really long way with the other projects that Be Friendly's doing. So thinking about ways to kind of get that out, we've, put it in there was a piece in the Soper Sun, and it's been there's flyers around, and we've put, kind of a lot of information out. But if other folks have thoughts on that and or anyone that's interested, let them know. There's more funding available.
I can't remember if you have stated this at a meeting in the past, but does the $2 per square foot, does that basically cover the cost, or like what is what proportion of that work does the rebate cover? Do you
It's
have
a good
any estimation of that?
Yeah, so it depends. I mean, it depends what you're doing. If you are, it depends what you're doing. So if you're renting I'll just say that covers, we're not asking for receipts or anything back. That's just kind of a blanket fee. But it depends if you're, if you're hiring somebody to do it, that's like much more expensive than doing the turf replacement yourself. If you're doing something where you're hand shoveling and covering with, cardboard and, kind of letting that compost and then putting it, that's a longer process. That's more cost effective. And if you're using seed, that's more cost effective. But, it goes a long way. For my yard, which we took out last spring, that was about 700 square feet. And we received a grant not through the town, through a state program that was for about $500. And that covered about 80% of the effort. But we were, that was also with a lot of labor, Jane included, and other Be Friendly folks helping out. And, just doing smaller seats. So it depends on what you're doing, but we decided, and part of those conversations that Scott was a part of, that we were not going to, require people to, and part of it's because it's an incentive to reduce water consumption, right? And so we're not saying you have to spend X amount to buy new plants, or maybe you have seeds someone who submitted an application, for example, had collected all his own native seeds and was doing all of his re-veg with native collective seeds, which is awesome. So, but I would say the $2 per square foot can get you pretty far depending on how you do it.
I have a question.
Morgan.
Is there any leeway on ditch water usage for that grant?
So the deal is that it's through it's state funding through CWCB, Colorado Water Conservation Board, and they require that you show metered data before and after. So your metered use of water before and after. The ditches, we just don't have that there's not that same type of metered reporting on the ditch system.
Yeah.
And also the grant or the state funding is about potable water reduction. So we don't really have any leeway from the funding that's through the state on the ditch.
Okay, because I looked and we're about to redo our little small backyard, but I didn't even know we were on ditch water until I went through the process and looking at filling out the application.
Yeah.
But we're in townhomes and we use our ditch water. So I feel like that may be a barrier for a couple of folks around here.
Totally. I mean, when about half the town is on, what's the percentage, Scott, that's on?
It's actually only about 20% of town. is
Only
on-
20%
Yeah.
is on
water.
ditch. Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's good feedback, it's good feedback. And part of that's just part of the, what comes with the grant.
Yes,
state
totally.
funding. But
One thing that
do you have any?
we did talk about early on in that application process was being able to use the data that we get from the turf replacement program. And then we can try to figure out how to use that for people that are on ditch water. So if we want to expand that down the road, essentially, but try to glean that information, and then the next steps might be able to benefit people on the ditches.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too would be if the town, this grant is coming from CWCB funding, but that was a grant that part of that was coming from the state and the other part was town matched. So in the future, if this program goes again, if the town would be interested to support, provide some funding, there wouldn't be have to be the same strings attached to it, right, than the CWC funding.
Right.
So if
Or
we
maybe
find a way to
there's
kind
other
of put
opportunities
metrics
for-
in place.
I don't know if there's other grant funding opportunities we could look into as well that might not have the restrictions against the ditch water.
Yeah. I think the takeaway though is if you're trying to do it, Morgan, we really support you and you should do it. And even if you're on ditch water and, the intent is to make there be funding available to make it more, to make it more attractive, but as an incentive, but, certainly support moving toward low water landscapes as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, thanks. Thanks for
Do
the
we have-
support.
Do we have any sense how much water goes out the other end of the ditch, or there's probably a lot of thought about how much has to get pushed through to keep it going all the way. But I wonder if we've got only 20% of historically, basically all the land in town would have been watered from a ditch. So I'm just curious if that has been a commensurate decrease in the amount of reliance on ditch water, or if we're putting too much water through our head gate necessarily, if we aren't using as much as we used to, or do we have to do it to satisfy water rights and stuff like that?
It's sticky. The water rights are definitely something we need to think about. And I've started to dig into it a little bit with Kevin. He has a better background, much longer history and background on how to manage the water rights. But no, we don't have a really good understanding of how much water we lose to going back into the river at the end.
Mm-hmm.
We also have areas where our tailwater goes to Gianetti's, to a large property that's irrigating a lot. So there's still beneficial use for others, even after it conveys through town.
Yeah, okay.
But big picture, I'd love to have more input from the e-board as well about where we want to go with our ditches too, of what you all might want to advocate for down the road, how we want to, advise the board. The ditches are a big contentious issue. We do pull a lot of water from the ditches, and it's not well measured, so we know about how much we're taking out because that's required to report for our water rights, but we don't know how much goes back in. And both the Roaring Fork and the Crystal are water gaining streams, so we lose a lot of water back into the ground. Example just being right over at Sopris and Snowmass, we have the big detention pond. All the water that comes down from White Hill into the Ella goes into that and infiltrates something at 500 gallons a minute. It's super fast. I mean, we put so much water back into the ground, and that, I don't know how long it takes, but that water does come back into the river in a very long periodization. So there's a lot of big picture stuff that you all can jump into if you want to. And I would welcome any steering on that. Because it's political. I mean, I get anywhere from a half a dozen to 24 calls a day to manage issues with the ditches. We have our guys running crazy to try to manage the ditches. It is,
Just users having complaints about, or,
we can get one house that say they are getting flooded out, and literally 4 doors down, they're saying, we have no water. And
these are in-town ditches.
in town.
Huh.
We probably have during the summer 2 to 3 full-time equivalents just doing ditches. That's a massive labor effort to manage these ditches.
The
So,
whole time they're on, Scott, or just when they're coming on?
yeah,
The whole time?
the whole time that they're on.
Yeah. Wow.
So we're running around cleaning every time people mow, it clogs ditches. We have people out there removing debris. So it's very labor intensive, and happy to have deep conversations about this and figure out where to take our ditches in the future. I mean, I think that most people find them to be a public benefit, but the reality is we put a lot of time and effort and money into them, and those get paid by our revenues from the people who are not on the ditches.
Yeah, it's also interesting to think about that in light of like the turf replacement, you know, that the folks who are not on the ditches are the ones who are actually being able to get the benefit of doing this incentive program, when folks who are on ditches have kind of had a really nice incentive a lot of the way along. So it seems like there is some kind of interesting dynamics there where it's like, yeah, if you're on ditch, you're not eligible for this program, but you've also kind of been getting a strong benefit along the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to totally overshadow something though, is that by being on the ditches, just that 20%, it reduces our summer peak for water production by something like 50%. So there is another whole.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why we've always justified that it makes sense to just save all that water production, because that's energy intensive as well. So there's another environmental challenge there. So it's a give and take.
I was thinking about the nitrogen phosphorus treatment of the potable water, and you know, ditches are a huge source of that from runoff from ag fields and whatnot,
ag, yeah.
fertilizers and how that all ties in.
I doubt that we're adding, because it wasn't with me, but at least several years ago, they did a bunch of sampling of ditch water, and it came back pretty clean in town. I don't know about our more agricultural oriented ditches, you know, that are on the outside, like the Ella, East Mesa, Sweet Jessup. Those are more ag impacted. I don't know anything about those. Anyway,
Well, I think it's fascinating. I don't know what the venue is exactly to dig into that more, but you know, yeah, it's interesting to hear about the labor side of the equation for sure, because I've sort of been under the impression that we should try to expand ditches if possible to more segments of town, but I imagine that might be another employee at some point.
I think could be a great idea, and that's something we should definitely have some more thoughts about. But then we have to manage it. It's a lot easier to put water in a pipe and pressurize it and make it go wherever you want to go than to make it all run downstream and not get stuck somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I helped Cody bring the ditch into Satank earlier a couple weeks ago, and it was a lot of muck raking.
Right. Yeah. Example, we spent around $250,000 this year on ditch maintenance, not including, that doesn't include any of our own labor.
Wow. Well, this
Sorry,
is a good conversation.
I didn't mean
It's a
to.
good conversation, and I want to have more of it. I'm fascinated by, yeah, I would love to think about this more. On the bee friendly side, so that was on the turf removal. The other update I would share is that we are, yesterday we had a mega work day at the Thompson House Pollinator Garden, and that's about 1,000 square feet that was the heritage pollinator garden that had been just really weed overrun. And so we scraped that and are replanting that and getting that going again. So we had a big plant order that came in. Unfortunately, only half of the plants arrived. The other ones are in back order. So we're working on trying to get the plants in that we can now. And getting that site kind of moving forward and more under control. But if you head over to the Thompson House behind the house on Louis Land, it's really a good project, good effort happening back there. And one note is that so the Near New donated $1,000 to Be Friendly, which is now in the eBoard account, and but is tagged specifically for the Thompson House project. And we're planning to use about 750 of that for our mineral mulch that's gonna go toward that, just the mulch for that garden. So just to get that known, that's, again, had been earmarked for that project already, but just to kind of get that on the record. Anything else I'm forgetting, Jane, Be Friendly wise?
I don't think so.
Okay. If anyone wants to do some gardening with us,
Some
come on out.
heavy duty gardening.
Yeah, right. I know people
What
come
days
by
are
like,
you
oh,
guys-
it's so nice to do plants, and it's intense.
you
It's intense.
meeting?
It's been great, but would you say, Chris?
Give us the set days you're meeting, or?
I'll send that out. We meet every other Friday,
Okay.
and then we've had a few kind of work days.
Okay.
The thing is, it's a little bit hard in the spring because it kind of it's like weather dependent, and it's also been dependent on this plant order coming in. So it's been hard for us to plan too far in advance on what our big days are gonna be. So
Well, you can text me day of too and see. Maybe
I will
yes,
text-
maybe I'll be available.
I will text you, Chris, definitely.
That'd be fun.
And we were working yesterday and had one of Quinn's colleagues stop by who lives in the neighborhood and just was like, hey, guys, what are you doing? And came and brought us water and grabbed her stuff and worked with us for an hour or so, and was like, it was delightful. So that's the Be Friendly update. And how about communications, education? Mike and Morgan, I know you guys were talking about some stuff. I want to give a forum if you all want to share anything.
You want to take that one, Morgan?
Yeah, sorry, my kid is screaming for me in the background, so apologies. Doesn't want to go to sleep. Yeah, so me, Mike, and Fred met over Zoom a few weeks ago just to like reset what we wanted to do because our goal seemed a little lofty with the allocation of time that we're able to commit. We talked about taking our budget and actually doing some educational events for the community. I've been in touch with Martha Ferguson, who is with Dark Sky Colorado, and she's working to make Snowmass the first dark sky. We mentioned it last time in the meeting. I'll just repeat, first dark sky in the Roaring Fork Valley. And she really wants to educate Carbondale. She thinks that Carbondale could be a great source to do this in our community too. And so I just received, she said she could meet earlier this week, but she keeps having to cancel for a couple of reasons. And so I just received an email from her to meet later in the week. So I'll forward that to Fred and Mike to see if y'all can join. And yeah, I think we talked about doing it at the library, a place that's free. Her doing some sort of, this is us three brainstorming. I haven't conversed with her on this yet. Brainstorming, inviting the community, but just to be educated about light pollution, and how it affects not only wildlife, but also our sleep cycles and how it affects all these other different things. And she's a great resource for that. So trying to tackle 2 of those before the end of the year, and seeing how we can create initiatives that way. And yeah, we'd love feedback. If y'all like this idea of doing some e-board educational events, just to remind you, and Fred, Michael, you'll hop in wherever, but before we had wanted to look into more composting, more recycling, especially for apartments. So it seemed too much for us to take on. And so trying to really tackle things that can be smaller and achievable and still align with what we want to do.
Sounds great. Just clarifying, Morgan, you were saying you were interested to do 2 light pollution events, or you were just interested to do 2 education events, one of which would be light pollution?
Exactly. We haven't talked about the second one. And would love ideas of what we think that could be if we all want to brainstorm together. Would love to, do one a quarter in the future. I think just getting this started a little bit later, and happy to do another one if we can fit it in.
Maybe we can send an email out to the e-board and just collect some ideas on what events we could possibly do.
Yeah. Even if it's an event on composting, or I know Be Friendly does events, but if we could partner together and do something or whatnot, little things that we think are an educational event on using ditch water. Like what does that look like and how does it benefit our community, and what are steps that our, individuals in the community can take to do their part or feel as if they're doing their part.
I think it's a great idea. Do other people have thoughts? Jane, Fred? Fred, you were a part of the meetings.
Yeah,
You were nodding your head.
everything for it.
Yeah.
I do like I was thinking that, Morgan, when you said it, the watering idea, efficient water use and when to water and all those things. And you kind of
Yeah.
tie that into stuff the town's doing and what Be Friendly's doing.
Mhm.
Like not turning on your sprinklers in the middle of the day.
Yeah, watering your sidewalk.
Yeah, I mean, and there was the Root Eye Water. There was a grant that was done through Western Resource Advocates that put together a variety of different water standards that Carbondale didn't formally adopt, but has definitely, aspects that could be supported. So there's definitely a lot of material out there on watering standards and recommendations that
And
could be good.
there's a Denver Water put out a Backstreet Boys parody of how to water your yard. It's pretty hilarious watching a bunch of engineers sing Backstreet Boys. If you want to Google something on YouTube, it's pretty entertaining.
It's a really good tip.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks, Fred and Morgan and Mike, and yeah, sounds great. Just let us know how we can support, but that sounds like a good idea.
I like the light pollution idea especially, and I think if there are, I think people are pretty aware of what the issue is, so I think it'd be fun to see if there are like solutions, some stories on solutions of what the communities have done or something where they actually made a difference. And because I think most people have gotten to the point of like, we don't like this and would like it to stop, but there's not really any agreement of what we need to do to go about trying to incentivize specific users or whatever to retrofit their equipment or whatever.
Mhm. Morgan, I'll remind myself to email you, but there's some folks too on the tree board who reached out to me who have some specific interest in lighting stuff that might be interested to know if we do the event or participating or whatever, but I will send that to you.
Okay, great. And Brad, Michael, I just sent an invite of when Martha can meet. If y'all can't meet, it's fine. I'll take notes and pass along. And yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Morgan.
Great. Anybody else subcommittee updates? Great. Super. Well, thanks everybody for being involved in those different things and moving stuff forward along the way. And we talked about the EV stuff already, but thanks so much, Quinn, for being a part of that effort. Dandelion Day. Thanks everyone for volunteering and for really stepping up in a big way when I had to head out. So I really appreciate that. I'd love to just open it up and make some space to kind of think about Dandelion Day, what people, maybe we can just start by sharing what we thought went well and just kind of everyone do that and then move into some things that we thought were, you know, opportunities or things in the future, or, you know, if there's anyone experienced challenges, but let's just start with what went well, what people were excited about, what was nice.
Well, just from like a logistics standpoint, I thought the vendor setup, I was there first thing in the morning. I thought that went very smoothly, the way that they had set up the sort of corner or like checking people in at the corners and then pulling in or like backing up against the sidewalk as like a evolution of what they did last time, which was a little more in disarray. It just felt like the setup was very smooth and people were kind of ready to go pretty quick. So that was a good thing.
I think the silk screening or whatever, the t-shirts thing worked out really well. I didn't talk to the ink folks afterwards, but it seems like a lot of people brought their own shirts, and then Ink was able to make some money, you know, selling shirts for people to get screen printed, and it's a pretty cool operation.
They were working on all day.
Yeah, I was surprised. I wasn't expecting it to be as busy as it was. So I mean, I like the idea of like us kind of getting a local artist to do a design and we kind of vote on it and, you know, kind of keep that going. But I think the screen print thing kind of fits in with our ethos and would be a good idea moving forward.
Mm-hmm. And it's unique.
Yeah. And I think Quinn Port did an amazing job organizing, and Luke and everybody. So I almost feel like we should write a thank you letter or something to those folks.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. The idea of having people park on 7th Street and Wheat worked out really well because I was of course at my 350 Roaring Fork booth, and I had a tag team of people joining me to help me out there, and they could just have their husbands pull up on those streets there and pick them up, and it was very convenient, which didn't seem to work out in the past. As a so-called vendor, I thought we did really well. My 350 Colorado leadership was very pleased with the number of signatures we got on our various petitions and sign-in sheets, and it worked out really well. I said earlier it was crowded. It wasn't as crowded as Mountain Fair, but it's getting there. Dandelion's getting to be a very big show. And well, I think in the future, we need to think about how big we want it to be. But this one was a great success, and I would like to extend my congratulations to Quinn myself. She did a wonderful job.
Well, I didn't see most of Dandelion Day, just our booth, you know, but which I thought we were off. I had a lot of people, or several people, ask me where, you know, looked for our booth and couldn't find it. That's one thing. I don't know, you know, I don't know why we didn't get where we were last year. But, you know, plenty of people did find us, and we were able to talk about stuff. But
Yeah, Chris, any reflections of what seemed
I
to go well? Anything else?
I feel like I agree with pretty much everything that was said. Yeah, it seemed like a big time event. I don't know if it needs to get pushed to be any bigger, or like, we don't need to put any effort into making it bigger. It seems like it just generates its own gravitational force of some kind. And I liked the t-shirt thing, and I didn't make it to any of the, there were some educational things. I didn't make it to that stuff.
Yeah, there were 4 educational things. Yeah. Keep going, sorry.
And was there, I don't know, there was some talk that Katrina Blair or whatever was gonna come back. Did she end up coming back or not?
I think she's scheduled to come back, but she wasn't, she had
Didn't
to
do that.
shift her day from then. So I don't know, Eric Brenlinger would know when she's coming, but I think she is, as far as I know, was planning to be here sometime this spring.
Because I still feel like if it was gonna be expanded, as I would wanna expand the like work aspect of it rather than the partying maybe. And I do think there's still options, could have some fun with like, next spring, making it a Thompson House day before or something like that. We're having a big weed in or whatever over there at the Pulte.
That would be great.
Not that kind of weed. No.
Right, how to like harness people who are there to do stuff.
Yeah, I think, just getting people more comfortable with actually like doing gardening and stuff too, and feeling like they can do that. And I think some people they would just like to be, it'd be a fun
Hands-on.
social way to be useful and stuff, and socialize. And I don't know. But otherwise, yeah, so otherwise, I just think it was a really fun party, and I think people had a good time.
And in the room for improvement category, do people have thoughts? I have some thoughts of what people shared with me. I was not there for the whole day, but what I did hear, one was that that it felt like there were a lot more people in the park than folks felt like was the kind of original ethos of Dandelion Day. Like it felt too crowded, is what people have shared with me. And I think it's interesting to think about the reason that the e-board booth was over where it was is because there were, I think, 25 or so more vendors, Kat told me. And yeah, so I think it would be really worthwhile to think about, have the e-board be a part of a conversation about like the visioning of what kind of goes next. Like, what's our maximum size? Like, let's, thinking about kind of the quality, not just adding more folks to add, but I think it could be worthwhile to have a discussion with the organizers and the different people, really involved, and different sponsors too, because other people do sponsor it, not just the environmental board. I also think that there was some folks said on the learning tent that they were interested in thinking about the opportunity to do some of the education maybe on the stage, to just have that be something that's a little bit more prominent or more, people know where it is. So that was kind of an interesting idea that someone shared with me. And I think the other idea of like, just kind of making it be not be the same hype as Mountain Fair, but having it feel like a really more of a local, smaller event. And, and maybe there's ways to do that by thinking about the vendors, for example, like the vendors are, we kind of set a radius, like it's vendors who are really coming from the Roaring Fork Valley, and it's really focused on that type of local support and really prioritizing plants. But I like the idea of the wellness component, but if that's really oriented toward local practitioners. So those are the kind of things that came up for me, and some of the feedback was how to think about what we want it to be from a vision, and then maybe put some requirements or some kind of stipulations along the vendors. But I think the folks who organized it did a really just smashing job.
I agree. Like what Chris was saying, like if we're gonna grow anymore, it'd be on the educational kind of informational aspect
Yeah.
of it. Though listening to Kat do musical chairs with a bunch of 8-year-olds was pretty entertaining. It's okay to lose, kids. It's life. That's basically she said at one point. Pretty fun.
Yeah, I think just putting the tent in a more prominent location. Were you in is Be Friendly its own tent, or were you in the education tent?
So it was a mix-up where somehow they didn't give us an e-board tent, which seems like surprising, but there was only a Be Friendly tent and a learning tent. And so we just put the Be Friendly with the learning tent and then gave the e-board the Be Friendly tent.
Oh,
But
okay.
it was kind of a miss that I don't know how that got miscommunicated, but
Yeah.
somehow we didn't actually have a e-board tent. So we didn't have, the kind of space that we thought we did. So we actually set ourselves up in the place where we were last year.
Hmm.
And then the morning of, they were like, no, actually, you're supposed to be back here. So
Hmm.
that was a little bit of a,
Yeah, I think
moving
I think
around,
you
but-
should go back to where you were the year before, probably.
yeah.
next
Well,
year.
it sounds like, especially with the pool, from what you were saying about the pool,
Yeah.
like that will probably have to happen.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
will say, I mean, having been there most of the day, I mean, we did talk to a lot of folks, met Kevin at the e-board thing or at the e-board tent. I think the free coffee helped. People were enticed by that, so. But no, I do agree, it'd be nice to be kind of more in the center.
Mhm.
But overall, I thought it was great.
Those are great reflections.
If you're looking for complaints, one of my tomato plants died already.
I'm so
Or you put it
sorry.
outside. or-
Watered it every day.
Do you want some?
No.
You sat next to the right person. And then-
Went to the CRMS plant sale and I have plenty.
Oh,
Great, well, thank you for that. I want to make time for new member applications. Does anyone have any final comments on the Be Friendly or on the Dandelion Day before? Okay. Kevin and Katie, thanks for sitting through the meeting and hopefully you're still interested to apply to the e-board. But we would love to, kind of the way that we have done this is that we would love to hear kind of a little bit about each of you and what your interest is to join the e-board. I have shared with Katie kind of what the e-board is and what it's about. And Kevin, I know that you spoke with Quinn, but if you all have questions for us, feel free to ask. And then we do a formal voting process where in the world in which you're sitting in the room, the person who's sitting in the room steps out and we kind of talk about different aspects and do a formal vote. If you're virtually, you're welcome to just mute or whatever you want to do, but we do have space available on the environmental board, and so we're really interested to have new members apply. So with that, I will, maybe Katie, your application is on here first. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us why you're interested in the e-board?
Sure. Sorry, I'm just gonna apologize. My laptop camera is not working.
That's
My
okay.
name is Katie Tabor. Some of you may recognize me. I ran for the Board of Trustees and did not make it. But in doing a lot of the research within the town documents and everything else, I just really kind of felt a connection with, the Climate and Energy Action Plan and the VCAPS report. And it just really got my juices flowing. And I immediately knew that if I wasn't voted onto the Board of Trustees, that I would want to apply to be a member of, I would like to apply to be on the e-board. I currently work for a landscape architecture firm, Connect One Design. I do a lot of landscape design, gardening, but also urban planning. I have a lot of experience in public outreach, and along the lines of like permitting projects through landscape architecture. I have a lot of knowledge of the communities around us, the municipalities around us. I have a lot of knowledge about their current codes, how those work, if they're successful, things like that. So I just would be excited to bring my set of skills and knowledge to the board.
Excellent. Thank you. And maybe we can just do, Kevin, do you want to share about yourself? And then maybe we can just ask questions to both of you and have a conversation.
Sure. Can you see me?
We can see you. We're kind of in the
Cool.
room, so you're far away and small, but we can see you. We can see you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my phone, so you all are far away and small as well. So no problem. My wife and daughter and I recently moved to Carbondale from Golden within the last couple months, and we were at Dandelion Day, and I ran into Quinn at the environmental board tent, and we just got to chatting. And basically I'm looking for ways to get involved in the community more, and this seemed like a perfect opportunity given the openings on the board. I do not have Katie's experience in this particular field. I am passionate about the environment, and care about it and think that this could be a great place to have an impact, but I don't have any specific experience there. In my own household, we try to take some small measures by driving EVs and composting, and we're part of a solar garden. We eat plant-based, things of that sort, but in the professional life, I'm a financial advisor. That's really where my background is. I've been doing that for 14 years. So, just figured I'd throw my name in the hat. If I can be helpful, I'd love to be a part of things. If you need someone with a little more specific experience to this area, then I may not be the best fit.
Thanks, Kevin, Katie. And just so there are 2 spots that are available. So just, I think we have several spots available. So we're not like pitting you against each other.
Cool.
Let's be clear.
I did think that, but yeah.
Yeah, just to be clear. But thanks to both of you for your interest and for reaching out to us to express your interest and for applying. Do folks have questions for Katie and Kevin?
Katie might be more well equipped as having ran for the board and did a bunch of research on the town, but I'd like to ask both of you, what's your biggest opportunity that you see for Carbondale in sort of the environmental sustainability space?
I really see the bringing renewable energy to a larger scale to Carbondale to really help achieve some of those goals. In the Climate and Energy Action Plan, I see that as a huge opportunity. We have a lot of sunshine here. We have geothermal here. And I think it's just a matter of, coming together with the right people, like you guys were talking about earlier, and forming those relationships to, maybe bring some new ideas to the table and form new connections to really kind of figure out how to do that on a big scale.
I'll jump in now. I'm impressed by what you guys are already doing. The geothermal project sounds amazing, really. And sounds like there's a ton of potential there. But as far as specific recommendations moving forward, as I mentioned, I've only think we've been here about a month and a half. So I'm really not familiar enough yet with everything that's going on to give a suggestion as to how things can be improved. It sounds like spreading the word about the turf would be helpful, and maybe coming up with a way to help spread the word about that. But yeah, I don't have a specific project or suggestion at the moment.
That's all right. Thanks. Thanks for your applications.
Those are great answers. Fred or Jane, you all have any questions?
Climate change is my issue. And I take it neither one of you is a climate change denier and doesn't believe that it's a Chinese hoax.
It's always good to ask.
I think this board is an advisory board to the Board of Trustees. And I think one thing you'll quickly learn is that the Board of Trustees doesn't always listen to us. They have growth in mind, and some of the ideas we have that will retard growth is unacceptable to them. Do you think you'd be able to live with that and work within those confines to accomplish what goals we can?
Oh, I mean, I think definitely. As an advising board, I think it's important to give the trustees the information they need to make the decision. You may not have a lot of control over the outcome, but you can always hang your hat on the fact that you did the research and you brought the best information forward to them.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. Can definitely stick to those confines, and I do believe that climate change is real. So I am with you.
Just the kind of boring logistical question. So, and we have a meeting once a month, and then there's time that we all try to contribute on the volunteer side. What are your thoughts on kind of just your availability and time commitment for being on the board?
I definitely have time for the monthly meeting, but I would be interested in being on some subcommittees as well. I don't have kids, and the biggest time suck for me is my job. So I do have time to contribute to the board and any subcommittees.
Yeah, I do have some availability as well. The monthly meeting is no issue. I guess, like, to put a specific number to it in my head, I would be thinking in the realm of 5-ish hours a month is, somewhere in that range is about what I would have. I do have a 2-year-old daughter. But yeah, I would be happy somewhere in that range. If it seems like it would be a larger time commitment than that might start to get tricky.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I mean, generally from signing up to be a board member or applying to be a board member is coming to the monthly meetings. And I would just say part of that is that because we do make decisions that we, vote on in different ways, having a quorum so that we can move forward with those recommendations or decisions is important. So it's part of just the functionality of the board of having members be able to be present. And certainly we got 5 hours, Kevin. That's awesome. Like, we're really, we're trying to kind of move the ball down the road between meetings, but also recognize that we all have, a lot of other life commitments and effort. And, certainly the intent too is to make this be a space where we can pursue the interests and pursue the projects and kind of pursue our own passions for the environment and climate action and try to do that in a way that's kind of a sum greater than any individual part, but also try to do that in a way that's, things that we like to do and things that are kind of engaging. So if you all are interested to be a part of that, we would be, delighted to have you be a part of the team. Do you all have any questions for us?
I just wanted to add some things on the pool that you were talking about earlier for the kind of sustainability goals, because I'm on that project. So currently we have applied for a solar grant, and if we receive that, we will be building the trellis with the bifacial PV panels for that. And once the trellis is installed, then the project will have enough solar energy to make the building net zero.
Oh.
The pools will never be net zero because they're just a giant energy suck, unfortunately. Some of the other cool things that we're doing is that we are capturing all the backwash water from the pool and dechlorinating it and reusing it for irrigation water. And then also the building exceeds all of the green building requirements with regards to materials and R values and insulations and things like that. So it really is a pretty sustainable project.
And Katie, could you remind us just your role on the pool project?
Yes, we are the landscape architects and planners. So we're taking the project through the approvals process through the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees for that.
Got it. Connect One, right?
Yes.
Great.
Why is the pool not going to be net zero?
On-site net zero, at least, because we don't have enough room on the site to generate the amount of electricity needed to run the pools. But the hope is that as you green the grid, the electrical, if it's an all-electrical pool, you are greening the pool in time as well.
Is that Holy Cross or Excel?
Excel.
Just to keep us on track, a good question, Fred, and also would be helpful to have Katie, some insights from Katie, who's a part of the project team, to pick her brain more. But in an effort just to kind of move forward, do we feel like we have enough information to make kind of vote amongst ourselves on Katie and Kevin's application? Or, okay?
Just a reminder, you have only 7 regular members and 2 alternates. So one of them will need to be an alternate.
Hey, Kay, will you turn your mic on?
Kay was saying, so part of the e-board, part of just the boards in general is that there are 7 official members and 1 alternate member. And the way that the alternate member works is that you can still operate, come to the meetings and be a part of subcommittees, but in terms of voting on decisions, you would vote if a full member is absent for that meeting. But it's kind of a stand-in. If someone leaves the board, then that person could move into a full member position.
And I don't remember if you have an alternate right now.
We do not have an alternate right now.
So one of these would have to be a regular member and the other an alternate.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And I'll just also note another kind of logistic thing is that both of you all, Kevin and Katie, you all both live in Carbondale per your address. Is that right? In Carbondale town limits?
Yes.
Yes.
Great.
And I'm more than happy to be the alternate. If that's how it works out, I will not be offended. So.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes.
Great. Just the town limits thing, that's great. We can have a few members outside of town limits, but when we have too many members outside of town limits, we can't do that. So anyway, easy that you all are both inside town limits.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Just to the board. How do you guys set goals for the year? Like, is that for what you work on throughout the year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I can share and then other folks can jump in, but generally what we do is toward the end of the summer in July, August, September, we start to have conversations as a part of these meetings where we kind of evaluate what our plan and what our goals had been for the last year, where we are on those, what we want to continue on or what we want to add, and how we're planning, how we would like to budget for those. So that's a process that we do within this meeting time. And, generally the kind of subcommittees that we've been talking about are when certain folks are interested in particular projects, or when there's some event, folks who are working on that would, we would give a line item to that for the event, like the EV ride and drive that Quinn's been working on, for example, was a line item in our plan that we made last fall. So we do that on an annual basis where we kind of evaluate what we've been doing and then decide and determine what we want to continue on for the next year. And then we review that as a group and then ultimately put some line items together and present that to the trustees.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add that the budget process is not only for the e-board to determine its own budget, but to influence the trustees' decision-making about environmentally related expenditures in the overall town budget. One thing I forgot to mention in my earlier report was we have a new sales tax collection through the state, which in the first two reports, I think has put us up 20% over last year's sales tax collection. So hopefully we'll have a bigger budget to work with as a town next year also. So, but yeah.
Quinn, you want to go and then?
Oh, I just wonder if it was worth explaining, like CLEER at all, maybe especially for Kevin. This kind of outside organization that basically the town pays money every year as part of like a contract to kind of help with environmental issues. And so we end up working with CLEER a lot. They are based here in Carbondale on the Third Tree Center. They do work in Garfield County and other places, but a lot of because the town doesn't have like a dedicated staff person to environmental issues and sustainability. And so they're kind of our boots on the ground, I guess, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, that helps. Thanks.
That's pretty common in town. I mean, like for example, the Bike Ped Commission now sort of has WeCycle running a major program on its behalf. And the Chamber of Commerce in effect acts as this town's business development agency or whatever. And there are probably many other examples of things where we contract somebody else to, it's nonprofits and stuff to do stuff so that we're not bringing it on board to the budget for as much as permanently, I guess.
And to add to that, so we sit down with CLEER at the end of the year and kind of help determine their scope for the next year. And so in that way, we kind of influence the type of things they're working on somewhat.
I see. And they're essentially heading up that geothermal project then, or?
Yeah, yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm happy to share with both of you. We've got, we have a Google Drive and a lot of the documentation of how we work with CLEER and what our projects are and what our budget is. And I'm happy to share that with you and, Kevin too, happy to hop on a phone call at some point if it'd be helpful to just kind of walk through more of what we're up to.
Appreciate that.
Do you all, Katie and Kevin, do you all have any more questions?
I don't think I do.
No.
Great. Are you still interested to apply for the board?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, a part of the board dynamic is that we do this formal process. So here we are. Would folks like to elect to appoint either of these folks, make a motion? Do we want to have any additional discussion? Usually this is the point where we would ask you all to step out of the room, but we'll just ask you to be in your virtual rooms. And this is a recorded meeting, so we're not saying anything wildly.
I have nothing for discussion, so I would move to appoint Kevin as our alternate and Katie as a full member of the e-board.
I second.
Fred seconds. All in favor and support? Aye. Great. Kevin, Katie, we're looking forward to seeing you in person and being a part of the environmental board.
Just a note, this is a recommendation to the Board of Trustees. And I will try to get the memo. It could go into next Tuesday's packet. So once that is done.
Right,
then-
there's another formal step in the process, but from the e-board side, yes, we will recommend you. Let's just make one last administrative note that,
And that's just a consent agenda item, so I don't,
Yeah,
it's not
it's
like
a
you have
kind
to
of a
go present
formality.
yourself in front of the trustees or.
right,
Oh,
you,
there's been discussion.
right.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
There's a
I don't
skills
think there is
competition.
in the department right
Right, but just to be clear, you all don't need to attend the trustee meeting or, yeah. I will follow up, Katie and Kevin, with both of you and share the documentation and happy to answer any additional questions. I want to just take a minute to talk about the June meeting. I'm not going to be here and I know Quinn's not going to be here. It sounds like Chris is not going to be here. And we have had a really great record of like meeting every month. So we really have not missed a monthly meeting, but if folks are going to be here and want to meet and someone else wants to chair the meeting, now would be the time to speak up. Otherwise, we may punt and have the next meeting happen in July.
Is it June 17th?
Yes.
Okay, I can be here.
So Fred can be here. Can anyone else be here?
I think I can. I'm not sure.
And
I hate to have like their next potential meeting be a skip, but I was going to say, let's have a summer vacation.
Yeah.
me,
I
okay,
can
Yeah,
make it, but-
I was gonna second Michael. But happy to
Let's
do
do-
whatever.
got it. Well, let's do this. Let's have our next formal meeting happen in July. And then because you all, some of the folks who are here are part of a subcommittee meeting already, you all can, gather amongst yourselves for sure if you want to and be friendly. Stuff will continue to be happening and we will text Chris when we need weeding help. So if that sounds all right, we'll just move to July. And that would be, just looking, that would be, so we meet on the third Mondays. So that would be July 15. Yeah, July 15th at 6. Great. I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
In seconds. Any final comment? Okay, I'll to adjourn. All in favor. Great. Okay.
Thank you all.
Kevin and Katie, thanks so much for zooming in and we'll be in touch.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thanks
Have a
for
good
joining the
evening.
e-board.
Yeah.
Bye.